Get your hands off my son. The words cut across the living room like glass. Jonathan Hale hadn't even shrugged out of his coat. Reins still clung to the shoulders of his suit, and the overnight bag hung from his fingers. 6 months away, 2 continents, 7 time zones, and the first thing he saw when he stepped onto his own hardwood floor was a woman he didn't recognize with his 8-year-old son in her lap. The woman looked up from the book. She didn't flinch. She didn't scramble to stand or set the child away like she'd been caught stealing. Her palms stayed on the boy's back, steady and protective. Ethan turned his head and blinked. "Dad." Jonathan set the bag down. The soft thud sounded louder than it should have. He took 2 steps forward, shoes whispering against the oak. "Who are you?" His voice was clipped, the kind he used when a deal started to smell wrong. The woman kept her tone even. "Naomi Brooks." Ethan slid off her lap but hovered close, shoulder touching her arm. "She's been reading with me." "That wasn't the question," Jonathan said. "Why are you in my house with my son?" Naomi closed the hardback and placed it on the coffee table. The cover showed a boy and a midnight blue hawk crossing a rope bridge. A sticky note peeked between the pages, the kind Ethan used for everything these days. "I'm here because he needed someone here," she said. "I hire staff," Jonathan replied. "I don't adopt strangers." Ethan's chin lifted. "She's not a stranger." Jonathan's eyes flicked to his son, then back to the woman. She wore dark jeans and a slate sweater, nothing flashy, no uniform, no apron. She looked like anyone you'd pass on a Saturday morning at a bookstore. Except she was in his living room when he hadn't told a soul he was flying home early. "Where is Dwyer?" Jonathan asked, meaning the estate manager. "And where is Ramirez?" Meaning the last nanny he remembered approving. "Miss Dwyer is at her sister's, out until tomorrow," Naomi said. "Ms. Ramirez resigned in March." Jonathan's jaw tensed. "Without my consent?" "She tried to get it," Naomi said. The emails bounced between assistants. Then stopped. Ethan's hand crept into Naomi's. She didn't look down when she squeezed his fingers. She kept her eyes on Jonathan as if she could hold the room steady with a stare. "I was asked to step in after that." "By whom?" "Your manager," she said. "And your son." Jonathan's laugh was more breath than sound. "My son hired you?" Ethan answered first. "I asked if she could stay. Everybody else left." There was a time when the boy's small, matter-of-fact voice would have unraveled Jonathan without effort. That time had slipped while he wasn't watching. He moved farther into the room, past the low fire, past the framed photo of 3 faces taken before the house turned quiet, back when Rachel's laughter still bounced off these walls. "Let go of her hand, Ethan," Jonathan said. Ethan didn't let go. "I don't want to." Naomi's thumb pressed once against the back of the boy's knuckles, a signal Jonathan didn't miss. She finally released first. Ethan's fingers hovered, reluctant, then fell to his side. "Explain," Jonathan said. "I was a substitute at his school one afternoon," Naomi answered. "He had a rough day. I walked him to the office and waited until someone came. No one came." Jonathan felt heat climb his neck. "He has a driver." "The driver left," Naomi said. "He was reassigned. Ms. Dwyer called me 2 hours later and asked if I could cover the evening. I made dinner, he ate, he slept. The next morning was worse. The morning after that was also worse. And so you stayed." Jonathan's tone flattened. "So I showed up when asked," Naomi said. "Then when no one asked, I showed up anyway." He stared. "You work for me, Ms. Brooks?" "I work for Ethan," she said. The answer hung between them like a challenge. The fire snapped. Rain ticked lightly against the tall windows. "Dad," Ethan said, small voice steady, "I wanted you to meet her first thing. I just didn't think first thing would be right now." Jonathan exhaled hard through his nose. He pulled at the cuff of his coat like it was choking him, then finally shrugged out of it and draped it over the arm of a chair. "How long," he asked, "have you been living here?" "I don't live here," Naomi said. "I sleep in the East guest suite when Ethan asks me to stay. Most nights, I go home." "How long have you been in his life?" 6 months, she said. Jonathan looked at the calendar on the mantel even though he didn't need to. 6 months was the exact length of the trip he had extended twice, the exact space between the promise he had made to come back soon and the echo of doors closing behind him at yet another airport lounge. He's been better, Naomi added, softer now. Not fixed. Better. He eats without bargaining. He sleeps most nights. He reads out loud again. Jonathan's gaze snapped to the book on the table. The yellow note, angle crooked, had 3 words in Ethan's blocky letters. Don't stop here. What were you reading? He asked. Falcon at Nightfall, Ethan said. We're at the bridge part. It's scary but good. Scary is okay, Naomi said to the boy without looking away from Jonathan. We can pause. We don't quit. Jonathan's mouth twitched into a shape that wasn't a smile. You talk to him like he's not breakable. He isn't, Naomi said. He's grieving. The room pulled tight. Jonathan felt the old urge to fill silence with motion, stride to the bar cart, pour something amber, reset the board. He didn't move. Ethan's eyes never left his face. You left without telling me, the boy said. Jonathan took that hit without dodging. I shouldn't have. Ms. Brooks told me people leave sometimes and come back, Ethan said. And that if they come back, you can listen first before you yell. Naomi's eyes flicked toward the boy. She hadn't asked for that citation. Jonathan absorbed it anyway. He tried a different angle. What exactly do you do here, Ms. Brooks, besides bedtime stories and life lessons? Naomi didn't bristle. I handle mornings. I keep his schoolwork visible so it stops becoming a surprise. I speak with his counselor weekly. I show up to the things where a second adult matters. What things? Jonathan said. Lunch when the cafeteria is too loud, she said. The first day back after a holiday. The day he brought a picture to class and someone laughed at it. What picture? Jonathan asked too quickly. Ethan nudged the book with his toe. Of Mom and Me. From the orchard. The cool in Jonathan's spine melted into something heavier. He cleared his throat. I see. Naomi's tone stayed practical. He doesn't need a savior. He needs a schedule, a grown-up who keeps their word, and a room that doesn't feel like a museum. Jonathan watched her eyes move once across the mantel, at the symmetrical candles no one lit, the perfect angles Rachel liked. This is my house, he said. Yes, Naomi said. And it's his home. The distinction landed exactly where she aimed it. Jonathan straightened, trying to regain the high ground with posture if not with facts. Dad, Ethan said, shifting his weight. Are you mad at me? Jonathan looked at the boy's hands, at the chew mark on his thumbnail, at the scuff on his sock heel. No, he said. I'm not mad at you. Are you mad at her? He measured his words like they could ignite. I don't know her. Naomi didn't fill the space to help him. She let the truth stand. Ethan's mouth tugged down. She stayed when the others left. Jonathan's next breath came tight. Naomi finally stepped back, small movement, respectful of distance without telegraphing retreat. Mr. Hale, she said, I didn't come here to replace anyone. I'm not trying to be his mother. I'm trying to make sure he has what every kid deserves, someone consistent. And what do you want? Jonathan asked. The question surprised even him. To do the job correctly, Naomi said. And to be treated like I belong in any room where decisions about him are made. Jonathan tipped his head like he was weighing an acquisition. He didn't blink. Naomi didn't look away. From the hallway, a clock chimed the quarter hour. The rain eased. Somewhere deep in the house a heater clicked on, the quiet whoosh of air filling the vents. We're not finished, Jonathan said finally. I didn't think we were, Naomi replied. Ethan shifted closer to her again, then stopped, caught between the habit he had learned and the father he had missed. He reached for the book instead and hugged it to his chest. Can we at least finish the bridge part? He asked, voice small but hopeful. Jonathan glanced at the note again, don't stop here, and felt the exact cruelty of picking the wrong moment to draw a line. He swallowed. We'll talk after dinner, he said to Naomi. Then to Ethan, gentler. Wash up first. Ethan nodded. He looked at Naomi like he always did before he left the room, for that tiny permission that wasn't hers to give and yet mattered. She nodded once back. He trotted toward the hall, socks whispering on wood. Jonathan waited until the boy turned the corner. He set his palm on the back of the chair where his coat lay, as if grounding himself to the furniture would keep his voice level. 7 o'clock, he said. I want every detail. Who hired you, what you've signed, what you've told him. Naomi's answer was simple. 7 o'clock. Jonathan picked up his bag and the room seemed to grow a size larger around him. He headed for the stairs without another word. At the landing, he felt it, the feeling of walking back into a life that had learned how to survive without him. He paused, not long enough for an admission, just long enough to hear it. Behind him, Naomi opened the book again. Her voice was calm when she began, like rain after thunder. The falcon stretched her wings over the bridge. 1 step at a time, she said. We don't look down. Jonathan didn't turn. He kept moving, slow, each footfall marking the line between everything he thought he controlled and what was actually true. The clock kept time. The house breathed. And downstairs, the story went on. The clock struck 7. Jonathan Hale descended the stairs with a glass of water in hand, shoulders squared, expression controlled but storming underneath. The house was quiet, too quiet for a mansion that had once pulsed with laughter. He found Naomi in the den, sitting upright on the sofa with a folder on her lap. Ethan was nowhere in sight. Where is he? Jonathan asked immediately. Asleep, Naomi said. I told him you wanted to talk alone. Jonathan set the glass down on the table, deliberately loud enough for the sound to carry. He remained standing, looming. Then talk. Naomi opened the folder. Inside were school papers, schedules, drawings. She didn't pass them to him yet. Instead, she met his eyes. You want details? I'll give you details. I want explanations, Jonathan snapped. I come back after half a year and find my son practically glued to a stranger. That doesn't happen in my house without my knowledge. Naomi didn't flinch. It happened because you weren't here. Jonathan's jaw clenched. He had heard board members challenge him, competitors undermine him, even family lawyers question his decisions. But something in the calmness of her tone cut deeper. Watch yourself. I am watching myself, she replied. That's why I'm sitting and not shouting. But I won't lie. Ethan needed stability. I provided it. Jonathan stepped closer. Stability doesn't come from people I haven't vetted, who stroll into my son's life without permission. Permission. Naomi repeated, voice low but clear. He was 7, grieving, waking up crying every night. Consent was already overdue. What he needed was someone consistent. Not a contract. Jonathan barked a bitter laugh. And you decided you were the chosen one? No, Naomi said evenly. He decided I was someone who stayed. Jonathan finally yanked the folder from her hands and flipped it open. His son's math sheets, signed in the corner by Miss Brooks. Teacher notes thanking her for following up. Ethan's drawings, some with stick figures, one tall, one smaller, and a medium one in between. His chest tightened at the sight. You've been signing for him? Jonathan asked. When the school required a parent or guardian, Naomi said. Ms. Dwyer authorized me. I always left notes. The school has records. You had no authority to. I had authority to show up, she cut in. When he was standing alone in the cafeteria, when he refused to pick up a pencil, when he pretended he couldn't read a word he actually knew. Authority doesn't mean anything if it never arrives. Jonathan slammed the folder shut. You crossed boundaries. Naomi's eyes hardened. No, Mr. Hale. I filled them. The boundaries were already abandoned. Silence pressed in. The fire crackled softly from the corner, a cruel contrast to the ice between them. Jonathan finally said, Pack your things. You're leaving tomorrow. Ethan's voice startled both of them. No. He stood in the doorway, pajama-clad, eyes wide and brimming. His fists were balled at his sides. You can't fire her. Jonathan turned sharply. Ethan, I told you to stay in bed. You told me to wash up yesterday too, but you didn't stay to tuck me in, Ethan shot back. His lip quivered but his voice didn't. She did. She always does. Jonathan ran a hand through his hair, torn between fury and shame. This isn't your decision. It is about me. Ethan shouted. His voice cracked but he pressed on. You left. Everyone left. She didn't. The room pulsed with his words. Jonathan froze, the accusation slicing clean through every defense he had prepared. Naomi stayed quiet, one hand hovering subtly at Ethan's back but not touching, not wanting to make it worse. Jonathan's voice dropped. Ethan, go back upstairs. This is between adults. No, Ethan said. If you make her leave, I'll... He faltered, tears slipping free. I'll stop talking to you again. The blow landed harder than Jonathan expected. His throat tightened. For months, he had begged teachers to coax words out of Ethan, only to be met with silence. Now his son's voice was strong, but only because he was defending someone else. Jonathan exhaled slowly, forcing his voice to steady. Ethan, please. Go to your room. Now. The boy's shoulders slumped. He looked between them, his father rigid, Naomi calm, and finally turned, dragging his feet up the stairs. Each step sounded heavier than it should. The moment Ethan's door clicked shut, Jonathan's mask cracked. He rubbed his temples, pacing a short line across the rug. Do you see what you've done? Naomi finally rose from the sofa. She was shorter than him, but her posture didn't bend. I gave him someone to trust. He's supposed to trust me, Jonathan bit out. Then earn it, Naomi said, voice steady but fierce. Because he already knows what it feels like when people walk away. Jonathan stared at her, chest heaving, hands curled into fists at his sides. He wanted to fire back, to tear her reasoning apart, but the weight of Ethan's words still echoed. She stayed. You didn't. For the first time in months, Jonathan Hale felt like he wasn't the man holding the power in his own house. Naomi's last words before leaving the den were soft, but unshakable. I didn't come here to steal your son. I came here to make sure he still had one. She walked toward the guest suite, leaving Jonathan standing in the silence, folder heavy in his hands. Upstairs, he heard Ethan's muffled sobs through the walls, and the sound hollowed him out more than any boardroom defeat ever had. Jonathan didn't sleep. He sat at his desk with the folder Naomi had left, the lamp throwing a tight circle of light over paper. Teacher emails. Counselor notes. A printout of Ethan's reading log with dates, minutes, and Naomi's quick initials. In the margins, small sticky notes in a kid's hand. Ask about the hawk, bring glue, don't forget show and tell. He opened his laptop and typed. Termination, Naomi Brooks. He stared at the subject line until it blurred, then closed the lid without saving. From the hallway, a thin sound carried, Ethan's muffled hiccups turning to slow breaths. Jonathan leaned back, palms over his face, and finally picked up his phone. Ms. Dwyer answered on the second ring. Mr. Hale? Why wasn't I told the nanny resigned? The beat. You were told. Twice. Your assistant said you were unreachable in Jakarta and Singapore. I sent a summary with temporary coverage notes. I never saw a summary. I sent it again in March with Naomi's schedule. And again in April. We spoke to council about authorizing signatures for school. I was told to proceed so Ethan's days didn't collapse. He stared at the dark window. His reflection looked like someone who had missed his own life by an hour and a half. And Naomi? She came when no one else did, Dwyer said. She did the work. That's all I have. He ended the call and sat very still. Morning broke clean and cold. Jonathan found Naomi in the kitchen at the stove, sleeves pushed up, steam rising from a small pot. The smell of oats and cinnamon hung in the air. She didn't look surprised to see him. How is he? Jonathan asked. Better. He cried himself empty, Naomi said. He'll need a quiet morning. Jonathan nodded once. We need rules. We do, she said, turning off the burner. He moved to the island, put both hands on the marble. Rule 1. You don't sign anything for him unless I approve it first. Agreed, Naomi said. If you answer when the school calls. He held her gaze. Rule 2. No more unannounced overnights. Agreed, Naomi said. If you or Ms. Dwyer commit to evening coverage on the nights Ethan spirals. Jonathan exhaled. Rule 3. Physical boundaries. No, he stopped himself. The word no touching sounded ridiculous even in his own head. No what? Naomi asked, not challenging, just asking him to say what he meant. He recalibrated. No falling asleep on the sofa. No, holding him like last night on a regular basis. He needs to know lines. And he needs to know he's safe, Naomi said. That's the line. When he's dysregulated, pressure and presence help. We can set structure without pretending he's made of glass. I won't apologize for comforting him when he asked for it. Jonathan's jaw flexed, but he didn't push. Rule 4. You don't step into decisions that belong to me. Naomi nodded. And you don't disappear and expect strangers to guess what Ethan needs. If I'm here, I need clarity and respect. From you. From school. From anyone who speaks to me through a window like I'm not human. He almost smiled at the edge in her voice. Almost. We're not finished about the guard. I know, she said. But first breakfast. She ladled oatmeal into bowls, slid one toward him. He didn't sit. She added sliced strawberries into Ethan's, then drizzled honey. The door to the hall creaked. Ethan stepped in, hair wild, eyes swollen but brightening when he saw both of them. Hey, bud, Jonathan said, softer than he planned. Hungry? A little, Ethan said. He lifted onto the stool and picked up his spoon. Naomi didn't fuss. She just sat beside him, close but not touching, and tapped the chart on the fridge. What's first? She asked. Read 5 minutes. Backpack. Teeth, Ethan recited. Jonathan's eyes hit the chart, morning map, with blocks of color, simple words, and sticker rewards. He glanced at Naomi. You made that. Together, she said. He picked the colors. They ate in quiet. Midway, Ethan's gaze flicked between them. Am I grounded? For what? Jonathan asked. For yelling. You're not grounded, Jonathan said. We'll talk after school. Ethan chewed, then slid a folded paper from under the placement. I drew something for the library contest. He unfolded it. A hawk on a rope bridge, a tiny figure with a backpack at the middle, a second figure at the start, a third at the far side with an outstretched hand. Jonathan looked at the picture too long. Ethan fidgeted, then pushed the bowl away. Naomi, read it first. You finish and I'll put it in your folder, she said. Okay, Ethan breathed. After breakfast, Jonathan helped with shoelaces, fumbled them, and let Ethan show him the trick Naomi had taught. Bunny ear, wrap, pull. The boy's pride was simple and fierce. It stung how new it felt. At the door, Ethan paused. Is she staying? For now, Jonathan said. We're setting rules. Does that mean you're staying too? Ethan asked. Jonathan's throat tightened. Yes. Naomi's look was neutral, but something in her shoulders eased. The drive to school was quiet. Naomi sat in the back with Ethan, reading the last paragraph of last night's chapter from a printed page. Jonathan watched in the rearview mirror while a line about bridges and fear slid into the small space of the car and settled things he couldn't. At the curb, Ethan unbuckled and then hesitated. He looked at his father. Will you come in? I have a call, Jonathan started, then saw Naomi's tiny shake of the head. Not scolding. A nudge. He changed course. I'll walk you to the door. Ethan's smile was quick and real. He hopped out, took his backpack, and reached for both of their hands at once, awkward grip, one small palm tugging two larger ones forward. Jonathan let him. Inside the foyer, the receptionist looked up, surprised to see Jonathan Hale in the morning rush. Mr. Hale. Miss Brooks. Good morning. Morning, Naomi said. We'll need to speak to Principal Hayden later this week about Ethan's peer incident. I'll email. We'll schedule, the receptionist said, friendlier than last time. Ethan squeezed both hands, then let go. See you after school. You've got this, Naomi said. Jonathan crouched. You've got this, he echoed. Ethan nodded and trotted toward his class. Back at the car, Jonathan opened the driver's door and didn't get in. I meant it. We'll handle the guard. And the other parents. Naomi leaned on the roof edge, steady. It'll be messy. Messy I can do, he said. They drove home. In the kitchen, Naomi pulled out a notebook. Let's line up expectations. Mornings, evenings, who takes drop-offs? No surprises. He nodded. I want status. Daily. No essays. Bullet points. She slid the notebook toward him with a pen. Then you start. Write what you expect from me. I'll write what Ethan expects from both of us. He stared at the blank page like it was a board resolution. He wrote, 1. Call me before any major decision. 2. No signing without me. 3. I attend school meetings. 4. Evenings. Mon/wed me, Tuesday/Thursday you, Friday we decide. He pushed the book back. Naomi read, then added, 1. No undermining each other in front of Ethan. 2. Advance notice for travel. 3. No leaving the house without telling someone. 4. If one of us is late, we say how late. He glanced at the last line. That one aimed at me? It's aimed at adults, she said. He almost smiled again. Anything else? She wrote the last line slowly. 5. We show up when we say we will. He set the pen down. Fine. She tore out the page and taped it to the inside of the pantry door like it was any other list in the house. Last thing, Jonathan said. You told him I left. I didn't tell him anything he didn't already know, Naomi said. I told him people leave sometimes. And that sometimes they come back and do better. I'm trying. I know, she said. Try where he can see it. A text chimed on Jonathan's phone, Lorraine. He didn't open it. He pocketed the phone and looked at Naomi. You're not fired. I heard, she said. But if I find out you hid anything from me, you'll fire me, she finished. Understood. And if I find out you promised him something and didn't follow through, I'll say so out loud. Understood. He didn't expect that. Understood. She rinsed the saucepan and set it to dry. Ethan's counselor meets Fridays. You should come. I will. And there's a parents' forum Thursday. You should listen before you talk. He nodded once. Noted. She turned off the tap. Good. Then we work. He left the kitchen with a feeling he hadn't had in months, like he was stepping into a role instead of wearing a title. On the hallway wall, the morning chart waited. A gold star gleamed beside walk to classroom. He touched the tiny sticker with his thumb, then let his hand fall. Authority hadn't vanished. It had cracked, shifted, and made room for something harder to fake. It had made room to be a father. Jonathan paused outside Ethan's room and knocked once. Yeah, came a small voice. He pushed the door open. Posters of rockets lined one wall. A blue duvet lay crooked. Lego pieces formed a half-built tower on the floor. Ethan sat cross-legged at the foot of the bed, pencil tucked behind one ear, the Hawkenbridge drawing propped against a pillow. Can I sit? Jonathan asked. Ethan shrugged. It's your house. Jonathan crossed the room and sat on the edge of the mattress. The springs creaked. He reached toward a Lego piece, thought better of it, put his hand on his knee instead. About last night, he began. Ethan didn't look up. You were going to fire her. I said things because I was surprised, Jonathan replied. I came back and found changes. You left and things changed, Ethan said, still not looking up. Jonathan let that land. I shouldn't have left the way I did. Ethan tugged at a loose thread on the duvet. You said you were coming back soon. You didn't. I know, Jonathan said. I made a bad call. I told myself space would help. It didn't. Ethan set the pencil down and finally met his father's eyes. You thought leaving would help? Jonathan didn't try to dress it up. Yeah. I did. She stayed, Ethan said. When I couldn't sleep. When the lunchroom was too loud. When I didn't want to read. Jonathan nodded once. I heard. She doesn't talk to me like I'm broken, Ethan added. She just says what we do next. What do you want me to say? Jonathan asked quietly. Ethan's mouth flattened. Say you're staying. I'm staying, Jonathan said. No more disappearing. If I'm late, I call. If I travel, you know when. Ethan studied him like he didn't trust the terms yet. Do you know my counselor's name? Jonathan blinked. I will by Friday. It's Miss Abbott, Ethan said. She makes me put feelings on a chart. I hate the chart. You can hate the chart, Jonathan said. We'll still go. Ethan reached toward the drawing and turned it slightly. You know what this is? The bridge, Jonathan said. The hawk. The kid. Ethan pointed to the 3 figures. That's me. That's her. That's you. Which one am I? Jonathan asked. The one at the start, Ethan said. But you're walking. Jonathan looked down so the boy didn't see the way that hit him. He picked up a Lego brick and handed it to Ethan. Where does this go? Ethan took it without smiling. You don't know. Show me, Jonathan said. Ethan snapped the piece in place. There. They built in silence for a minute. Not comfortable yet. Not hostile either. The tower climbed 2 levels. Jonathan cleared his throat. I set some rules with Ms. Brooks this morning. Ethan froze. Like firing rules? Like structure, Jonathan said. Who handles mornings? Who signs what? No surprises. We agreed. Ethan's shoulders eased a fraction. She likes rules. So do I, Jonathan said. If they're about showing up. Ethan slid another brick into place. She said people leave sometimes. I heard, Jonathan said. She also said sometimes they come back and do better. Will you? Ethan asked. I'm going to try in a way you can see, Jonathan said. A beat passed. Ethan lifted the hawk drawing and studied it. Mom used to read to me. We'd make voices. She did a squeaky one for the mouse. Jonathan swallowed. I remember. Ethan didn't put the drawing down. Ms. Brooks doesn't do voices. But she doesn't stop when it gets scary. She says we can pause, not quit. Good rule, Jonathan said. Ethan set the drawing back and climbed up to the head of the bed. Are you going to make her stop reading to me? No, Jonathan said. We'll read too. You don't like the Falcon book? Ethan said. I don't know it yet, Jonathan replied. Maybe I will. Ethan pulled the duvet over his legs and glanced at the door. Is she mad at me? For last night? No, Jonathan said. You defended someone you care about. I yelled, Ethan murmured. We can work on how, Jonathan said. But I'm not mad you said what mattered. Ethan rubbed his eye with the heel of his hand. I thought if I yelled loud enough you'd listen. I hear you, Jonathan said. I missed a lot of words. I won't miss more. Ethan's gaze flicked to his father's hand. Are you going to? He stopped. Never mind. What? Are you going to take the chart down? Ethan nodded toward the morning map, taped low on the inside of the closet door. She said we made it together. If you take it down, it means you're taking her down. Jonathan stood, walked to the closet, opened it, and looked at the chart. The boxes were small, check marks neat, stickers crooked and brave. He shut the door gently. It stays. Ethan's shoulders dropped a notch. Okay. Jonathan sat again. The room hummed with the quiet of night, house settling, wind nudging the window. He reached toward the nightstand and picked up the book. You want me to finish the bridge part or wait for her? Ethan hesitated. She said pause, not quit. Then we can read 2 pages, Jonathan said. We leave the dragon voice for her. Ethan smirked despite himself. You'd be bad at the dragon voice. I would, Jonathan agreed. They read. Jonathan took the narrative, slow and steady, careful with the words he didn't know yet, letting Ethan correct him on a name he mispronounced. On the 2nd page, the boy's head leaned against the headboard, and his breathing evened out. Jonathan closed the book on the sticker note, "Don't stop here," and set it down. He pulled the duvet up to Ethan's shoulders and tucked the edge like he remembered to do a long time ago. Dad? Ethan asked, eyes half closed. Yeah. Are you going to fire her? Jonathan looked at the door, at the slice of hallway light, at the quiet space that used to be louder. He didn't answer quickly. No, he said at last. Not tonight. We're figuring things out. Ethan's eyes drifted. Don't fire her, he whispered. Jonathan leaned closer. I heard you. Ethan's hand found his father's wrist under the blanket and stayed there, small and warm. He didn't grip tight. He didn't test. He just held. Jonathan stayed until the hand went slack. He stood, turned off the lamp, and stepped to the door. Naomi's shadow moved in the hallway. She had been passing, not listening, but close enough to be there if needed. He met her eyes. No one spoke. Jonathan angled his head toward the stairs. Naomi nodded and followed him down. In the kitchen, he reached for 2 glasses, filled them with water, and set one in front of her. "He asked me not to fire you." "I heard his voice," she said. "Through the vent." "Of course," he said, almost smiling. "This house carries everything." Naomi set the glass down. "You don't have to like me." "I don't," he said. "I respect what you've done. I'm working on the rest." She accepted that. "He needs both of us." "I know," Jonathan said. "You read the dragon. I'll take the bridge." Naomi's mouth lifted a little. "Deal." He glanced toward the ceiling. "He's asleep." "Finally," she said. Jonathan wiped a ring of water off the counter with a dish towel. "Tomorrow I'll take drop-off. You take pick-up. We talk to the principal together next week." "Friday counselor," she added. "You come." "I already said I would." "Then show up," she said. He nodded. "I will." Naomi turned to go. At the doorway she paused. "Thank you for not making him choose." Jonathan looked down at his open hand, then back at her. "I won't again." She left. Jonathan stood alone with the hum of the refrigerator and the steady tick of the wall clock. Upstairs, a boy slept under a blue duvet. In the hall, a chart stayed taped where it belonged. In a house that had felt like a museum, something finally moved without breaking. And in the dark between rooms, a father decided to earn the right to be one. The morning ran on time. Backpick. 5 minutes of reading. Jonathan and Naomi didn't say much in the car. Ethan sat in the back with the Falcon book on his knees, tracing the picture of the rope bridge with a finger. At the curb, the line of SUVs inched forward. A security guard in a navy windbreaker waved cars through. Naomi unbuckled, slid out first with the backpack, and reached for Ethan's hand. "Walk," she said. He hopped down and fell into step beside her. Jonathan killed the engine and followed. At the gate, the guard looked past Naomi toward Jonathan. "Students this way, sir." "She's with us," Jonathan said. The guard's eyes flicked to Naomi's face, then to the lanyard at her neck. "Volunteers use the side entrance." "I'm Ethan's guardian," Naomi said calmly. "We'll go together." A white Audi rolled up. The guard waved it through without a word. "Morning, Mrs. Winthrop." Mrs. Winthrop didn't show her ID. She didn't have to. Jonathan's jaw tightened. "We're not here to argue policy. Open the gate." The guard hesitated, then pressed the button. The latch clicked. Naomi didn't thank him. She didn't glare either. She walked through with Ethan, posture straight. Inside the courtyard, parents clustered in small knots, coffee cups, sunglasses, polite whispers. A few turned to look. A blonde woman in a cream coat leaned toward her friend and spoke just loud enough to carry. "Is she the help or something more?" The friend's answering hum was theatrical. "Depends who you ask." Jonathan heard it. Naomi heard it too. She didn't break stride. Ethan did. He stopped and turned, small shoulders squared. "She's my guardian," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but the word landed. The blonde blinked. "That's unusual." Jonathan stepped in before Ethan could keep going. "It's necessary," he said. "And it's not your business." The woman's smile tightened. "Everything at school becomes everyone's business eventually." "Not this," Jonathan said. Naomi touched Ethan's elbow. "Line up, champ." They reached the second-grade door just as the bell rang. Kids flooded toward the steps, backpacks bumping, voices high. A freckled boy in a red hoodie slid up beside Ethan and grinned, mean in a way he thought adults couldn't read. "Hey," the boy said. "Is that your maid mom?" Ethan stiffened. Naomi knelt so her face was level with his. "Eyes on me," she said softly. "Breath in for 4. Out for 6. The boy leaned closer. "Do you sleep in the broom closet with her, Hale?" Jonathan moved faster than he meant to. "What did you just say?" The boy's mouth snapped shut. A teacher, Ms. Patel, appeared, hands up. Everyone settle. Backpacks in line. Now. Ethan's hands balled into fists. Naomi didn't touch him. She let him mirror her breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 6. The freckled boy rolled his eyes. He needs a babysitter for breathing now. Ethan lunged. He didn't punch. He shoved the boy's shoulder hard enough to make the backpack slip. The kid stumbled and caught himself on the railing. Ethan! Ms. Patel snapped. That's enough. Jonathan stepped between the boys, palms open. Back up. The courtyard stilled. A ripple of whispers spread. Naomi stood, still calm. Ethan! Look at me. He did. His chest heaved. His cheeks were bright with heat and humiliation. Naomi's voice didn't change. Do you want to stand or sit? Stand, he choked. Good, she said. Feet under you. Shoulders down. We'll use words. Ms. Patel exhaled. Office. Both of you, she said to the boys. Now. What for? Jonathan asked, keeping his voice even. Physical aggression, Ms. Patel said. We have to document. And the provocation? Naomi asked. Ms. Patel looked uncomfortable. Note the interaction. Name it, Naomi said, not raising her voice. He called me his maid mom. That's not a harmless joke. A man with a clipboard, assistant to the dean, materialized as if he'd been waiting. Let's not escalate labels at drop-off. Jonathan's look was sharp. You mean let's not say racist when it happens in front of glass doors? The clipboard man shifted. Parents edged closer, then pretended they weren't listening. Ms. Patel gestured. Office. We'll sort it there. Naomi brushed a hand through Ethan's hair without lingering. I'll walk with you. In the office, the receptionist glanced up and pasted on a smile. Good morning. Incident report, Ms. Patel said. 2 students. She ushered the boys into chairs. The freckled kid, suddenly smaller without an audience, stared at his shoes. Ethan's jaw worked. Jonathan stood behind him like a guardrail. Naomi took the seat to Ethan's right, not between him and his father, but close enough to anchor. The assistant principal, Mr. Larkin, stepped out of a side office with a practiced expression. What happened? Ms. Patel summarized. Shove at the steps, words exchanged. We've seen some reactivity with Ethan since winter break, she added carefully. Jonathan cut in. He defended someone he cares about when she was degraded. Mr. Larkin held up a hand. We caution against framing peers as aggressors without due process. Naomi didn't bite. Then process it, she said. But process what was said. Mr. Larkin glanced at the freckled boy. Toby, did you use inappropriate language? Toby shrugged. I said, maid mom. Everyone calls her that. Not everyone, Naomi said. Toby glanced toward the door, already calculating escape. Mr. Larkin sighed. We'll call parents. We'll schedule a meeting. Today after school if possible. Jonathan's voice was flat. This morning. Mr. Larkin hedged. The principal's calendar. Find the time, Jonathan said. The receptionist's phone rang. She answered, murmured, then cupped a hand over the receiver. Principal Hayden can see you at 8:30 for 10 minutes. Jonathan looked at Naomi. Naomi nodded once. We'll take it. Ms. Patel turned to Ethan. Do you have something to say? Ethan stared at the floor. I shouldn't have pushed. And? Ms. Patel prompted gently. And I didn't like what he called her, Ethan said. It's not a joke. Naomi didn't add anything. She let it stand. Mr. Larkin scribbled on the form. Restorative conversation after class. Parent meeting at 8:30. Toby, wait for your mom. Ethan, return with Ms. Patel. Ethan looked over his shoulder at Naomi. He always looked for that tiny cue. Naomi gave him the smallest nod. Bridge rules, she said. 1 step. He breathed out. 1 step, he echoed and went with the teacher. When the door closed, the office dropped a decibel. Jonathan's hands were clasped too tight. He let them unclasp. I saw enough, he said. Naomi stood. So did I. They stepped into the hallway. Parents were still gathered by the front doors, murmuring. The blonde in the cream coat caught Jonathan's eye and held it, unembarrassed. Jonathan didn't detour. He walked straight to her. "You made a comment about my family at the gate," he said. "I asked a question," she replied. "You asked if the woman who raises my son is the help or something more," he said. "Here's your answer. She's the adult who shows up every day. She has my full authority on campus. If you have another question, ask me directly. Not at my son." Color rose in her cheeks. "There's no need to be hostile." "There's every need to be clear," Jonathan said. He turned before she could recover and strode back to Naomi. They walked outside together into the thin winter sun. By the car, Jonathan leaned on the roof edge and looked at Naomi. "I wanted a theory," he said. "I got proof." Naomi's mouth lifted, not a smile. "It's not new. It's just the first time you saw it." He nodded once. 8:30. "We do this together." "We do it with facts," she said. "Not just anger." "I can do facts," he said. "And I can do anger when it's earned." She glanced toward the building. "He'll be fine until we get back." "He will," Jonathan said, "because he knows we're coming." They stood for a second without speaking, the gate behind them clicking open and shut, admitting people who didn't have to explain why they belonged. Then they got into the car and pulled forward into the day that was about to get louder. Inside his pocket, Jonathan's phone buzzed. Lorraine again. He let it buzz. He had something more urgent than optics. He had 10 minutes with the principal and a reason not to waste them. At 8:29 a.m., the receptionist's smile was the kind you keep in a drawer for special occasions. "Principal Hayden will see you now, 10 minutes. Jonathan checked his watch. "We'll use them." Naomi didn't adjust her blazer or her tone. "Ethan's in class?" "Settled," the receptionist said. Principal Hayden's office was neat and practiced. Framed diplomas, a shelf of children's books, a poster about kindness. Mr. Larkin, the assistant principal, leaned against a cabinet with a legal pad. Ms. Patel slipped in a beat later and closed the door. "Mr. Hale," Hayden said, standing to shake his hand. "Ms. Brooks." Naomi nodded once. Jonathan didn't sit until they did. Hayden folded her hands. "We're here to de-escalate after a difficult morning." Jonathan kept his voice level. "We're here to identify what happened and fix what allowed it." A flicker in Hayden's eyes. "Understood. Ms. Patel?" Ms. Patel summarized. "Hallway comment, Ethan's shove, no injury. We'll file a standard incident report." Naomi spoke before Larkin could. "Include the language." Hayden glanced over. The comment. "Maid mom," Naomi said. "Name it." Larkin's pen tapped. "We typically avoid codifying pure language, labels stick." "Racism already sticks," Naomi said. "Documentation is how you unstick it." Hayden interlaced her fingers tighter. "We don't condone derogatory speech. We address it with restorative conversations." "Then restore it with the truth," Jonathan said. "Write down what was said. Call it what it is." Larkin tried a detour. "We need to be careful with terms that imply intent." Naomi didn't blink. "You don't need a PhD in intent to recognize a slur dressed as a joke." Silence. The kindness poster stared back at all of them. Jonathan slid a sheet across the desk, Ethan's schedule with Naomi's notes, and a copy of the district's non-discrimination policy highlighted. "Your policy prohibits discrimination based on race and caregiver status. Enforce your own words." Hayden read the highlight, then set the paper down. "We will add the exact phrase to the report." "Good," Jonathan said. "Next, the gate." Larkin stiffened. "Security protocols are applied selectively," Jonathan cut in. "The guard waved through a parent without ID and asked my son's guardian to exit the vehicle. That won't happen again." Naomi's tone stayed even. "I'm listed as guardian and educational liaison on Ethan's file. Provide all gate staff with the updated list today. Issue me a visible badge by pickup." Hayden nodded, slower this time. "We can print a visitor badge." "Not a visitor," Naomi said. "Guardian." Larkin scratched the pad. Hayden exhaled. We can mark your status and print a permanent badge. Thank you, Naomi said. Jonathan leaned forward. This afternoon, a meeting with the other child and his parent. Apology to Ethan and to Ms. Brooks. Today, not sometime this week. 2 o'clock, Hayden said after a glance at Larkin. I'll lead it. Also, Naomi said, address the class. Not by calling out names, by setting language expectations. Children repeat what they hear. Ms. Patel spoke for the first time. I can do a circle today. We talk about names, respect, what to do when you hear something wrong. Naomi nodded once. Good. Hayden shifted to policy. Consequences must be educational, not punitive. Educational looks like practice, Naomi said. Teach them how to say, I'm sorry for calling her that. I won't do it again. Larkin tried again. There's also Ethan's shove. Jonathan didn't dodge it. We'll address it with him. He'll own it. But you don't get to separate his action from what triggered it to keep your report tidy. Hayden held his gaze. I'm not trying to keep it tidy. I'm trying to keep it fair. Then be fair to the adult who's been treated like furniture, Jonathan said. And to the kid who learned the only way to get heard is to push. Hayden's eyes softened a fraction. You're right, she said quietly. About both. The clock ticked. 9 minutes. Last piece, Naomi said. Staff training. Front office and gate. Recognize authorized guardians who aren't biological parents. No euphemisms, no, are you the help, looks. Hayden nodded, more certain now. We'll schedule an all-staff at next week's PD. I'll draft a memo for parents reaffirming our caregiver policy. Jonathan didn't smile. Send us the draft. Larkin flipped to a fresh page. Action items. Incident report with verbatim phrase, guardian badge by pickup, 2 p.m. restorative conference, classroom circle today, caregiver memo, staff training. Naomi added, update Ethan's contact priority. Ms. Brooks and Mr. Hale reached simultaneously for emergencies. 4 routine forms, Ms. Brooks may sign after contacting Mr. Hale. Put that in writing. Hayden wrote it down herself. Done. Jonathan stood but didn't leave. One more thing. Hayden waited. If I hear, we're handling it internally, again when you mean, we're avoiding the word, I'll bring this to the board, Jonathan said. I'm not threatening to go over your head. I'm telling you I'll stand next to you when you do the right thing, and in front of you if you don't. Hayden's answer was clean. Stand next to me. 10 minutes exactly. Hayden rose. I'll walk you to the front. In the hallway, the same parents lingered like background actors who didn't get the note to clear the set. The blonde from the gate looked up, then away. Hayden paused by the front desk. Badge for Ms. Brooks, she told the receptionist. Guardian status. The laminator hummed. Naomi clipped the badge to her blazer. Brooks, Naomi, guardian. Not volunteer. Not visitor. As they reached the doors, Ms. Patel jogged up. Quick update. Ethan settled. Chose independent reading. Picked a book about bridges. She smiled at Naomi. He asked if falcons can carry backpacks. Naomi's mouth softened. They can carry courage. Patel's eyes glinted. I'll tell him. Outside, the winter sun was brighter, the kind of light that makes sharp edges obvious. They stepped into it together. By the car, Jonathan exhaled. Facts first, he said. Then anger. We used both, Naomi said. Thank you, he added, for not letting me make this about optics. You didn't, she said. You made it about him. He unlocked the SUV but didn't open the door. You shouldn't have to defend yourself in those rooms. I know, Naomi said. But until the room learns, I will. Preferably with someone who knows how to count minutes and move policy. Jonathan let that sit. 2 o'clock, he said. We go back. We do, she said. And you'll listen before you talk. He almost smiled. Noted. His phone buzzed again, Lorraine. He silenced it. Another chime followed, a text from an unknown number. This is Hayden. Draft of caregiver memo in an hour. Badge ready. See you at 2. Then a second text from Ms. Patel. He's okay. Reading the bridge chapter. Stopped to help another kid find a page. Naomi read over his shoulder. He didn't pull the screen away. He's learning how to stand without shoving, she said. Because someone showed him how, Jonathan replied. They got in. Before he started the engine, he turned to her. You asked for rooms where decisions are made. That includes my house. Naomi didn't look at him. She watched the stream of families. Then keep making it a home. Not a museum. He nodded once. Working on it. They pulled into traffic. Behind them, the gate clicked again. Open, shut, making a metronome out of belonging. Ahead, 10 minutes had already changed more than 6 months of silence ever did. The day did what days do. It kept moving. At 2 o'clock, the restorative meeting was short and awkward. Toby's mother apologized with her jaw clenched. Toby repeated the words with his eyes on the carpet. Principal Hayden kept it on the rails. Naomi didn't perform grace. She named the harm and accepted the apology without softening it. Ethan said, I won't shove again, and then asked if he could go back to class. He could. By 5:30, the house was breathing like a house again. Warm light in the kitchen, faint music from the small speaker, the dry whisper of the heater. Jonathan came in with his tie tucked into his pocket and sleeves rolled. Naomi was at the stove. A pot simmered low. Garlic and thyme drifted through the room. She didn't look up at first. She was watching the way the sauce thickened as if it had something important to say. Ethan sat at the island with colored pencils and a half-finished worksheet. He looked up. We're doing compare and contrast, he announced. Falcon versus owl. Who wins? Jonathan asked, shrugging out of his jacket. Depends on if it's daytime, Ethan said without looking, pencil moving. And on who's carrying a backpack. Naomi's mouth twitched. Wash your hands before you become a science experiment. Ethan hopped down and trotted to the sink. Jonathan drifted to the other side of the island. He tapped the pot with the wooden spoon handle. You always cook on days like this? Kids need predictable when the world isn't, Naomi said. Pasta is predictable. Jonathan nodded at the cutting board. Can I help? Naomi didn't blink at the word can. She slid a pile of basil toward him and handed him a knife. Roll, slice thin. Watch your fingers. We're not going to the year for pesto. He smiled without showing teeth. Yes, chef. They worked without talking much. Ethan reappeared with damp hands and clean nails, held them up like evidence, then sat back down to draw a tiny backpack on the owl. Jonathan sliced slowly, clean ribbons curling under the blade. Naomi salted the water with the unhurried confidence of someone who knew when enough was enough. Ethan finished his worksheet and rotated it toward Jonathan. Compare, falcons are fast, owls are sneaky. Contrast, falcons fly in day, owls at night. Both birds. Both can be your friend if you don't try to pet them. Jonathan read it like a contract and then like a father. Approved, he said. Naomi drained the pasta, tossed it with sauce, and plated without flourish. She set a bowl in front of Ethan and a bowl in front of Jonathan, then served herself last. No speech. No announcement. Just dinner. They ate. Ethan slurped. We're not supposed to slurp at school, he reported. Ms. Patel says it's a distraction. This is home, Naomi said. We slurp if the sauce earns it. Jonathan tried not to laugh. He failed a little. The sauce earned it. Ethan leaned toward Naomi when he asked for cheese and toward Jonathan when he wanted water, the small gravitational shifts of a boy mapping 2 adults at one table. Naomi passed the cheese without looking. Jonathan reached for the pitcher before Ethan finished his ask. Tomorrow, Naomi said between bites, I'll email Hayden about the badge. We'll see if the memo went out. Send it to me too, Jonathan said. I'll reply all with something impolite and then delete it before hitting send. Ethan glanced up. Imp what? Grown up for, I'll think first, Naomi translated. They ate in near silence for a minute. It wasn't empty. It had shape. Ethan set his fork down. Thank you for the meeting, he said, to both of them and neither. My stomach felt like a washing machine. Naomi took a sip of water. That's a feeling word. It's also a machine, Ethan said. I didn't shove after. That's the part one noticed, Jonathan said. Ethan's shoulders unhitched a notch. He glanced toward the living room. Can we read tonight? Naomi wiped her mouth with a napkin. 2 chapters if your homework is in your backpack. Ethan slid off the stool and ran to check. From the living room, it is. It's zipped. I zipped it by myself. Jonathan watched Naomi stack plates into a neat line by the sink. I can handle cleanup. I know, she said, already running water. Team means faster. Team, he echoed and reached for the dish soap. He rinsed, she scrubbed, he dried. When their hands brushed over a plate, they didn't freeze, they adjusted. It felt like choreography they hadn't rehearsed but somehow knew. From the living room, Ethan called, "Which voice is the dragon tonight?" "You are," Naomi answered. "I thought I get the falcon voice," he bargained. "You get both if you brush your teeth without turning the faucet into Niagara Falls," she said. Silence. Then the distant squeak of a bathroom door and water running with restraints so comical Jonathan almost laughed. "He respects your metaphors," Jonathan said. "He respects not flooding the house," Naomi said, rinsing the last plate. Jonathan set the towel down and leaned his hip against the counter. "He's lighter tonight." Naomi shut off the tap. "He's anchored. There's a difference." The living room light pooled soft on the rug when they joined Ethan. He was already under the throw blanket, book open, badge-sized grin visible for exactly 1 second before he forced a serious reading face. Naomi sat first. Jonathan hesitated, then took the armchair across from them. Not hovering, not retreating. "Where were we?" Naomi asked. "The bridge ended," Ethan said. "But then the storm started." Page 141. Naomi found the page, smoothed the corner, and began. Her voice was steady, unforced, not an actress's music but a teacher's pace. The falcon warned, the boy forgot, the ropes sang under rain. Ethan didn't interrupt. He tracked each line with a finger like he could pull the story forward just by staying on it. Jonathan listened. He didn't hear performance, he heard ritual. He heard the cadence of pause not quit woven into a paragraph about wind and water. He heard his son breathe in time with a sentence. At the chapter break, Naomi closed the book halfway. "Pause. Not quit," Ethan said automatically. "Teeth check?" Naomi asked. He flashed a grin, bearing them like a small wolf. "No Niagara." "Approved," she said. Ethan wiggled. "Dad reads 1 page?" Naomi looked at Jonathan, not to test him but to include him. Jonathan reached for the book like it might burn him, then held it steady. He read. Not perfectly. He stumbled on a place name. Ethan corrected him without malice. He overdid the dragon voice. Naomi's mouth curved, and Ethan giggled through his nose. They finished the page. Naomi took the book back and didn't mark him wrong, didn't mark him right. She just kept going. At the end of the 2nd chapter, she placed a yellow sticky, their shared flag, on the line where the boy on the page decided to cross back for someone else. Ethan slid down until his head landed against Naomi's side, then angled so his feet touched Jonathan's leg. Not arranged. Natural. He stayed there like a bridge built from 2 sturdy banks. Naomi didn't comment. Jonathan didn't move. "Can I ask something?" Ethan said into the blanket. "Always," Naomi said. "If the falcon leaves, does the boy still cross?" "Yes," Naomi said. "But it's easier when someone watches." Ethan thought about that, the exact length of a small boy's silence. "Okay." His eyes stayed open for 3 more breaths and then closed. The breathing changed. The room recalibrated around it. Naomi didn't try to lift him. She adjusted the blanket with 2 fingers and kept her hand light on his shoulder for 1 more minute, then eased it away. Jonathan watched the ease. It looked like practice, not magic. "I'll carry him," he said, standing. Sheets turned, Naomi answered, standing too. He slid his arms under Ethan and was surprised by the familiar weight. The boy murmured and folded into his chest without waking. Jonathan carried him down the hall. Naomi followed, flicking on lights ahead and off behind with the quiet competence of someone who knew where all the switches lived. In the bedroom, they worked like a team that had been a team for longer than they had. Jonathan laid Ethan down, Naomi pulled the duvet, Jonathan tucked the edge, Naomi set the hawk drawing back on the pillow where Ethan could see it when he woke. Jonathan lingered at the door. Naomi didn't say good job or see you can. She just stepped back into the hallway. He pulled the door until it hovered a finger's width open, the way Ethan liked it. Back in the living room, the book lay on the coffee table with the yellow flag. Jonathan touched the sticky with his thumb. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" Naomi asked, honest. "For the way dinner didn't feel like a meeting," he said. "It was dinner," she said. "He needed that. You did too." He didn't argue. "I'll take drop-off again tomorrow." Naomi nodded. "He'll ask you to come in. Say yes or no. Don't say maybe. Say yes or no," he repeated. She picked up the empty water glasses. "I'll double-check his backpack. He hides homework in the secret pocket like it erases it." Jonathan almost smiled. "Noted." She started toward the hall, then paused. "He's going to wake around 2. Sometimes he does after hard days. If you hear him first." "I'll go," Jonathan said. "Good," Naomi said. "Bridge rules." "One step," he said. "Don't look down," she finished. She disappeared down the corridor toward the guest suite. The house quieted in layers. Kitchen hum, heater whisper, the soft click of a bathroom door. Jonathan stood alone in the living room and looked at the couch where his son had fallen asleep against the woman who had taught him how to keep going. He sat in the chair he'd chosen at the start of the chapter and didn't turn on another light. He didn't check his phone. He didn't make a list. He stayed. That was the whole act. Upstairs, the night reset itself around a boy who would wake and go back to sleep, around a chart taped inside a closet door, around the smell of basil that still lingered like evidence. In the quiet, Jonathan said a sentence he hadn't said in months, even if no one heard it. "I'll show up." And for once, it didn't feel like a promise he had to sell. It felt like a thing he could do. Jonathan's phone lit up again the next morning, long before sunrise. He almost ignored it, but the name pulsed across the screen, Lorraine Whitman. Rachel's sister. He swiped. Lorraine. Finally, her voice came sharp, half scolding, half triumphant. "I've been calling for days." "I saw." "Then why didn't you answer?" Jonathan rubbed his forehead. "Because I knew what you'd say." "You don't," Lorraine snapped. "Not until you listen. I had a call from a parent at Ethan's school. Do you know what they're whispering? That some maid is parading around like she's his mother. Signing forms. Attending meetings. Sitting at your dinner table, for God's sake." Jonathan sat up straighter. "She's not parading. She's showing up." "You think that sounds dignified?" Lorraine's tone was sharp as glass. "Jonathan, appearances matter. Rachel trusted me with Ethan's welfare too. And if you're going to let some employee blur the lines, people will question your judgment. Custody courts will question it." The threat landed like a blade. Jonathan's hand tightened on the phone. "Don't talk about custody. Ethan is my son. Not yours." "And not hers either," Lorraine said quickly, meaning Naomi without saying it. "She is not family." Jonathan's jaw flexed. "She's the only one who stayed when staff cycled out like tourists. She was there when Ethan couldn't sleep, when he couldn't eat, when he couldn't breathe without choking on grief." "That doesn't make her blood," Lorraine hissed. "It makes her present," Jonathan shot back. A silence crackled. Then Lorraine's tone softened in that practiced way. "Jonathan, I know you're grieving. I know you think she helps. But lines are blurry. It isn't healthy. Ethan needs stability, not some stranger taking Rachel's place." Jonathan's voice dropped. "Don't you ever say she's taking Rachel's place. She's giving Ethan what I didn't when I ran. Stability. The basic act of not walking away." Lorraine didn't respond immediately. "I'll be in Napa next week. We'll talk then. In person." The line went dead. At breakfast, Naomi noticed Jonathan's silence. She was pouring orange juice when she said, "You look like someone rewrote your calendar without asking." Jonathan glanced at Ethan, who was arranging blueberries into constellations on his pancake. "We'll talk later." "Talk now," Ethan said without looking up. "You always say later." Jonathan exhaled. Aunt Lorraine called. Ethan's hand froze over the pancake. She doesn't like me. That's not, Jonathan started. Naomi interrupted gently. She doesn't know you well enough to like or not like you. That's on her, not you. Ethan relaxed a little, popped a blueberry into his mouth, and looked at his father. Is she coming here? Yes, Jonathan said. Next week. Ethan chewed, then whispered, Don't let her fire Miss Brooks. Jonathan reached over and touched his son's shoulder. She doesn't get to fire anyone. That's not her call. Naomi cleared the plates after. She didn't press, but her silence wasn't empty, it waited. Lorraine arrived 3 days later, punctual and perfumed. She stepped out of a rental sedan in the driveway, camel coat immaculate, lips painted the same burgundy shade Rachel once teased her about. Jonathan opened the door before she could knock. Lorraine. Jonathan, she said, sweeping in without waiting. She paused only when she saw Naomi in the living room, folding Ethan's laundry. This must be her, Lorraine said, each syllable dipped in acid. Naomi straightened. Naomi Brooks. Lorraine's smile was thin. I know your name. She turned back to Jonathan. We need to talk. Privately. No, Jonathan said. We talk here. Lorraine blinked. In front of her? In front of the person who knows Ethan's day better than either of us right now, Jonathan replied. Lorraine's eyes narrowed. She set her purse on the console table like planting a flag. Jonathan, I warned you on the phone. This is not sustainable. She lives here. She signs documents. She comforts him like, Lorraine's voice sharpened. Like a mother. Naomi spoke, calm and unshaken. I never told Ethan I was his mother. I never tried to be. Lorraine turned to her. But you let him cling to you as if you are. That's manipulation. Jonathan stepped in. Enough. No, Lorraine said, fire rising. Someone has to say it. You're letting this household blur every line Rachel worked to keep. Staff are staff. Family is family. This, she gestured at Naomi, is an intrusion. Naomi's voice stayed level. An intrusion doesn't tuck your nephew in when he wakes screaming at 2 a.m. An intrusion doesn't attend counselor sessions because no one else showed. An intrusion doesn't sit through racial slurs at school and keep showing up anyway. Lorraine flinched at the word racial. So now you're making this about politics? This is about Ethan, Naomi said. He needed someone. I stayed. That's all. Jonathan stepped closer to his sister-in-law. And I need you to hear me. She stays. She is not staff. She is not a placeholder. She is Ethan's guardian, by my decision and the school's records. You don't have a say. Lorraine's lips pressed into a tight line. You're blinded. By grief. By guilt. Jonathan's eyes were sharp. I am many things. Absent. Stubborn. But not blind. I saw my son laugh again because of her. I saw him breathe through anger because of her. I saw him stop collapsing under silence because someone was patient enough to sit with him in it. Don't tell me that's nothing. Naomi didn't look away. She didn't add anything. Lorraine picked up her purse, voice like cut glass. You'll regret this when people start asking why your son is being raised by help. Courts, donors, your board, they notice. Jonathan held the door open. Then let them notice. For a long second, Lorraine stared, as if daring him to bend. He didn't. She walked out, heels clicking hard against the stone drive. Jonathan shut the door and leaned his forehead against it for half a beat before turning. Naomi was stacking folded shirts into a basket. She hadn't moved. You didn't have to spar with her, Jonathan said. Yes, I did, Naomi said softly. Because Ethan heard every word from the stairwell. Jonathan turned. Sure enough, Ethan sat 3 steps up, chin on his knees, eyes wide. Come here, Jonathan said. Ethan didn't move. Is she going to make you fire her? No, Jonathan said. Naomi came forward, crouched so her voice carried steady. She doesn't get to decide. Your dad does. And you matter in that decision. Ethan blinked. Then don't fire her. Jonathan reached out, and this time Ethan came. He sat on the step between them, leaning against Naomi's side while looking at his father. Jonathan's answer was clear. She stays. And for the first time in a long while, Ethan didn't ask again. He just believed it. The storm rolled in before noon, a low gray lid pressed over Napa. The house dimmed to the color of dishwater, and the windows hummed under the wind. Ethan came down the stairs too quietly. Naomi was rinsing a bowl when she saw his face. "Hey," she said, wiping her hands. "You look pale." "My head hurts," he whispered. "I'm cold." She touched his forehead. Heat snapped against her palm. "Okay," she said, already moving. "Couch." He didn't argue. That scared her more than the temperature. She set him on the sofa, pulled a blanket over his legs, slid a thermometer under his tongue, fingers steady. The beep came fast and wrong. 103.3. She dialed without thinking. "Ms. Abbott?" The counselor could route callers faster than the phone tree. "Pediatrics line?" 2 transfers later, a nurse's voice. "Slots full," then a pause, then a squeeze in at noon. "Virals going around," the nurse said. "Fluids. Fever reducer. Watch for breathing issues or confusion. Are if over 104. Naomi thanked her, set the phone down, and looked at the boy. Ethan's lashes stuck together with sweat. "I don't like it," he said, honest as always. "I know," she said, honest back. "We'll write it." She measured out medication, logged the time on a scrap of paper, 11:03, then tucked the paper under the lamp base like a minor ordnance. Jonathan's footsteps hit the hall fast. "Abbott called me," he said. "How bad?" "High and sticky. Noon appointment. We've got 30 minutes. He moved like he knew what mattered and what didn't. "I'll get the car." Naomi wrapped a scarf around Ethan's neck and slid his arms into a sweatshirt. His head fell onto her shoulder as she lifted. He was heavier with fever. The drive was rain and red lights. Jonathan's jaw worked. Naomi sat in the back with Ethan, counting his breaths under her own. The pediatrician's waiting room smelled like vanilla cleaner and crayons. Ethan's knees bounced. Naomi rubbed slow circles on his back, not fussing, calibrating. Dr. Lai listened to lungs, checked ears, peered at throat. "Influenza-like," she said. "Lymph nodes up. Lungs clear. Hydrate. Fever reducer. Expect a rough night. For only if he's unresponsive or can't keep anything down." Jonathan's questions came clipped. "How high is too high?" "Over 104 and not budging with medication," Dr. Lai said. "Otherwise, the body's doing its job. It feels worse than it is." Back home, Naomi turned the living room into a small, competent hospital. Blanket. Thin pillow. Cool mist humidifier. A tray with water, ice chips, applesauce. A bucket within reach. The thermometer lived on the coffee table with the scrap of paper, now a log, 11:03, 107, 318. Jonathan hovered. "What do you need?" "You on towels if we need them," she said. "And you on the phone if this spikes." "Done." Ethan dozed and woke in cycles. He was brave in a way that came from practice, not theater. When he moaned, Naomi hummed without melody. When he asked, "Is Mom watching?" she said, "Always," without looking at Jonathan. Rain combed the roof. The house settled around the rhythm of a fever. By 8, the number read 102.2. By 10, 101.7. Naomi sank into the far end of the sofa and set a timer on her phone for 45 minutes. "We'll take shifts," she said, and slid a folded throw under her neck. "You sleep," Jonathan said. "I'll take first." "You don't have to be a hero," she murmured, already half gone. "Be consistent." He sat in the armchair, phone face down, eyes on the boy. Every so often he stood to adjust the blanket, to swap the cool cloth on Ethan's forehead. At 12:41, the timer he hadn't heard chimed anyway, and Naomi surfaced. "Trade." He didn't argue. He lay down on the rug with the throw tucked under his head and stared at the underside of the coffee table like it held equations. The hum of the humidifier became the middle of the night. At 2:17 a.m., Ethan jerked awake. "Dad?" he gasped, small and panicked. "My stomach." Naomi was already moving the bucket. Jonathan was already lifting the blanket edge. It was quick and awful. When it was over, Naomi's hand moved between Ethan's shoulder blades, firm, slow, familiar. In for 4, she said. Out for 6. They counted with him. His breath obeyed. Jonathan took the bucket and the towels without flinching and vanished to the laundry room. Naomi whispered something half lullaby, half counting, the kind of thing you only learn when repetition builds a groove in your mouth. When Jonathan came back, Ethan's eyes were at half-mast. Water? Jonathan asked. Tiny sips, Naomi said. Ice chips first. Jonathan knelt, held the cup, tipped only enough to wet the boy's mouth. Ethan took it like an agreement. At 3:06, the fever edged to 100.9. Naomi noted it one-handed and didn't celebrate out loud. At 4:33, it slid to 99.8. She closed her eyes and let her shoulder drop for the first time in hours. Jonathan watched the log and then her face. No sainting, no performance. Just work. Love wrapped in competence. He didn't realize he was staring until she opened one eye. What? She whispered. You make this easier, he said. This is the job, she whispered back. No, he said, softer. This is more. She didn't argue. She tucked the blanket under Ethan's feet where he'd kicked it loose. By dawn, the windows lightened from graphite to dull pearl. 98.9. Naomi touched Ethan's forehead and smiled into the boy's hair like she was exhaling 4 days of weather. Cool, she said just for him. Jonathan sat up from the rug, a small rock garden of aches crackling in his spine. He down? Down enough, Naomi said. Ethan blinked, then squinted at the light. Did I miss pancakes? Both adults laughed too loud for the hour. You get toast today, champ, Naomi said. Pancakes when your stomach stops being dramatic. He smiled, a real one. Okay. Jonathan went to the kitchen and returned with toast cut into 4 squares like a flag. Ethan nibbled half a corner, then leaned back, spent in that clean, satisfied way you get after a storm breaks. When he drifted off, Jonathan stood and stretched, then reached for the coffee maker. Naomi shook her head. Sleep, she said. You're walking like a question mark. I can't, he said. I might miss. Nothing, she said. We're in the part where nothing is exactly what we need. He didn't argue. He sat on the rug again and leaned against the sofa, eyes closing without permission. He woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Ethan breathing like any kid with a long Saturday ahead. Naomi handed him a mug. He took it with a murmur of thanks. The log on the table had one more line, 722, 98.6. He looked at the numbers, then at the woman who put them there. You were calm, he said. Even when he... Someone has to be, she said. He borrows our breathing. He nodded, throat tight. Thank you. You're welcome, she said, and it wasn't performative. It landed like an answer, not a dismissal. Ethan stirred, eyes slitting open. Is Mom mad I threw up? No, Naomi said. She hates carpets anyway. A crooked grin. Me too. Jonathan let himself laugh, the kind that loosens the ribcage. He looked at Naomi, then really looked, and the word staff felt too small and too ugly to hold what she was in this room. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. Lorraine. He didn't pick up. He silenced it, set it face down, and stayed exactly where he was. Naomi adjusted the humidifier, slid the bucket farther away like the night's bad chapter could be pushed to the edge of the page, then sank into the far cushion. The 3 of them sat in measured quiet while the house remembered how to be a house. Ethan opened his eyes again. Do falcons get sick? He asked, voice sandpapery. Sometimes, Naomi said. But they still fly when it clears. Do they still carry backpacks? Only if the load matters, she said. He nodded, satisfied, and drifted again. Jonathan leaned his head back and looked at the ceiling he'd ignored for a year. In the lines of the plaster he saw a bridge he hadn't crossed, a bridge someone else had stood under with a net until he found his footing. Naomi, he said, not looking over. I'm learning, he said. I can see it, she said. He didn't make a vow out loud. He let the room hold it. Outside, The storm thinned to a fine, ordinary rain that made the garden smell like second chances. Inside, a boy slept, a woman kept the log, and a man decided, quietly, to stop being a visitor. The auditorium at Maple Glen didn't look like a place that held fights. It had banners for Diversity Week and a mural of kids holding hands across a cartoon globe. On the folding table near the stage sat pitchers of lemon water and a stack of cups that would taste like paper. Rows of chairs filled with parents in scarves and weekend blazers. The air hummed with the kind of low, careful chatter that pretends it isn't gossip. Jonathan and Naomi slipped in near the start. He wore an open-collar shirt, sleeves rolled. She wore a navy blazer with the new badge clipped clean and visible. Brooks, Naomi, Guardian. A few heads turned. Some eyes dipped to the badge and away again. Principal Hayden stepped to the microphone, smile practiced. "Thank you all for coming to our quarterly Parent-Guardian Forum." She glanced at Naomi on the word guardian, the smallest nod, then launched into attendance numbers, the new STEM wing timeline, reminders about parking. Jonathan sat very still, elbows on his knees, hands folded. Naomi stayed one row back, the way she always did in rooms like this, present without stepping into a spotlight she hadn't asked for. When Hayden opened the floor for general comments, a man in a quilted vest stood. "I have a question about security protocols at the gate. There's been chatter that they're being revised." "Clarified," Hayden said. "We're ensuring all authorized caregivers are recognized and treated consistently." She didn't look at Naomi, but the room did. A woman in pearls lifted her hand half-tilt. "And by caregivers, we mean?" "Parents and legal guardians," Hayden said, "as listed on student files." A soft rustle moved through the chairs like dry grass. The blonde from the gate, cream coat traded for a soft gray, leaned toward her friend and whispered something that made the friend's eyebrows climb. Jonathan stood. Hayden blinked. "Mr. Hale?" "I'd like to speak," he said, voice steady. "Briefly." There was a pause long enough to count 8 heartbeats. Hayden stepped back, gave him the mic. Jonathan didn't go to the lectern. He stood a few steps in front of it, as if he didn't need elevation to be heard. "Some of you know me. Some of you know my last name." He let that sit. "You also know my wife died last year. Since then, my son has lived with more silence than any 8-year-old should. And he didn't soften it, ran from that silence longer than I should have." No one moved a cup. "In the middle of all that, a person stepped into my house and did not make speeches," Jonathan continued. "She did the work. She walked him into this building when I didn't. She sat in counseling sessions and cafeteria corners and principal offices. When my son woke at 2 a.m. shaking, she was the steady hand on his back. When he stopped talking, she kept showing up until he started again." He turned slightly, not enough to make it a gesture, just enough to acknowledge the badge in the row behind him. "Her name is Naomi Brooks. She is my son's guardian. If you've got questions about whether she belongs in this room, you can ask me, not my kid." A tight, brittle laugh from somewhere halfway back. "No one here is attacking your—" "I heard Maid Mom at the gate," Jonathan said, not raising his voice, letting the words land where they needed to. "I watched security wave through a parent without ID while asking Ms. Brooks to step out of the car. I heard whispers about lines and places, like we're collecting dues for a country club." Someone coughed. Someone else stopped pretending not to look at Naomi. "She knows her place," Jonathan said. "It's right next to my son. That's where she's been every single day you've been deciding if she meets your test." He let the sentence hang there, clean and sharp. "If that makes you uncomfortable, examine the part of you that thinks care has a pedigree." From the side aisle, a father in a blazer lifted a hand. "With respect, Mr. Hale, no one wants to undermine your arrangements. But it is unusual. Schools need norms to function." "Norms exist to serve children, not the other way around," Jonathan said. "If your norm can't recognize the adult who raises a child because she doesn't share his last name or his skin, your norm is broken." The room went very still. Hayden didn't move to reclaim the mic. A woman in a denim jacket, Jennifer, the single mom from 2C who had written on the forum, stood slowly. "My son is in Ethan's class," she said. Her voice shook at first and then didn't. He told me. Ethan smiled again after Miss Brooks helped him find a lost backpack. That's not a headline. But it matters. A lot of us are just trying to get our kids through the day with kindness. If someone is making that easier, I don't care what you call her as long as you call her with respect. A few nods. Not many. But enough to change the shape of the silence. The blonde in gray lifted her chin. I never said anything racist, she announced to no one in particular and everyone at once. Naomi stood then. It was not dramatic. She didn't move down the aisle or ask for the mic. She just rose in her row so her voice could carry. I'm not here to be your test, she said. Even. I'm here because a child needed consistency. I will always answer questions about schedules, forms, reading logs, behavior plans. I will not answer questions about whether my presence embarrasses your brunch. If you have a problem with the word guardian on a badge, take it up with the policy. If you have a problem with me, take it up with Mr. Hale. If you talk about me to his son, you'll hear from both of us. She sat back down. The badge winked once in the light. Jonathan looked at Hayden. That's all I have. He handed back the mic. Hayden took it like it weighed more than before. Thank you, Mr. Hale. Thank you, Miss Brooks. She turned to the room. For clarity, our caregiver policy is posted on the school website and will be emailed today. Security has been retrained on recognizing authorized guardians. If you witness derogatory language on campus, report it. We name harm and address it, without euphemism. The meeting limped on after that, committee sign-ups, bake sale schedules, but the air had shifted. Some people avoided Naomi's row like it was dangerous to be seen near it. Others hovered afterward to mumble something that wanted to be apology and didn't quite get there. On their way out, the blonde in gray stepped into Naomi's path. Up close, her lipstick was a little smudged. You didn't understand, she said, eyes fixed somewhere at Naomi's shoulder. About everything. I still think it's unusual. It is, Naomi said, not unkind. That's not the problem. The woman's face worked like she was trying on 3 expressions and none fit. I'm sorry about the word. Thank you, Naomi said. She didn't add a bow or a benediction. She moved on. Outside under the parking lot lamps, the air felt cleaner. Jonathan exhaled a breath he'd been holding since he stood. You didn't have to speak. I didn't, Naomi said. I had to stand. He considered that, nodded once. How bad is the fallout going to be? Less bad than pretending, she said. More bad than silence. They walked to the SUV. Before Jonathan opened the door, he turned. For the record, he said, I didn't do that to look good. I know, Naomi said. You did it so Ethan doesn't have to. They drove home without the radio. The kind of quiet that feels like a clean room after a storm. Inside the house, there was an unsteady pyramid of library books on the coffee table and a pair of small sneakers kicked half under the couch. Ethan darted out of the hallway when he heard the door. Did you talk? We did, Jonathan said. How many minutes? Ethan asked, the way kids measure seriousness. Enough, Naomi said. Ethan looked between them, then at the badge on Naomi's blazer. He reached up, hesitated, and touched the edge of it with one fingertip, like checking if it would hold. It says guardian, he whispered, impressed. It does, Naomi said. Jonathan crouched. You okay? Ethan nodded. Can we read? Naomi checked the clock. 2 chapters if you brush your teeth without Niagara. I'm not Niagara, Ethan said, extremely offended. Then he sprinted down the hall to prove it. Jonathan watched him go and then looked back at Naomi. You know they didn't clap. They're not supposed to, she said. They're supposed to change. She smiled, small, tired root. 1 step. Don't look down, she finished. That night, when the house breathed and the lemon water people were home in their kitchens, Ethan sat between them, the book open, the yellow sticky flagging the page where a boy learned the difference between crossing for himself and crossing for someone else. Naomi read a paragraph. Jonathan read the next. Ethan leaned into the story the way he leaned into both of them. They didn't need applause. They needed continuity. And in a town where belonging often came with a last name, A badge did something a last name hadn't done in a while. It told a boy where the adults he trusted would be, and who would stand there with him when the room got loud. Saturday had the clean light of a day that hadn't decided what to be yet. Ethan sat at the dining table with crayons spread like a small explosion. Naomi moved through the kitchen in the rhythm of a house that was finally learning one song. Checking the fruit bowl, rinsing a mug, fishing a worksheet out of the secret pocket Ethan thought she didn't know about. Jonathan stood in the doorway for a beat longer than necessary, watching both of them move inside the frame of his own home. Field trip form, Naomi said without turning. Needs a signature and $10. Jonathan stepped in, took the paper. $10 is the part I'm prepared for. Signature is the part you owe, she said. He signed. Naomi slid the form into the folder, the motion neat, practiced. Thank you. Don't thank me for doing my job, he said. Then don't narrate it, she said, mouth curving. Ethan held up a blue crayon. Where are the good reds? In the tin with the pencil sharpener, Naomi said. Back corner. How do you always know? Ethan asked. I live here, she said, and the words landed exactly in the middle of the room. Jonathan set his coffee down and drew a white envelope from inside his jacket. He didn't hand it over yet. I have something. Naomi glanced over, eyes narrowing slightly at the tone that lives between propose and announce. What is it? A thank you, Jonathan said. And a correction. She wiped her hands and faced him fully. Okay. He offered the envelope. She took it, slid a finger under the flap, and pulled out a short stack. A cover letter on Whitmore capital letterhead, a plain language agreement, an addendum from the school. She skimmed the first page. Offer, family care advisor and education liaison. Full-time. Salary figure she didn't say out loud. Health and dental. Paid time off. Tuition support if she ever wanted to finish a degree. A seat, by name, on any meeting about Ethan's education plan. Authority to sign routine school forms after making a reasonable effort to contact Jonathan. Emergency authorization aligned with the pediatrician's file. Respectful, specific language where most documents use fog. She didn't look up. She flipped to the addendum. A memorandum from Principal Hayden acknowledging Naomi's status on school records, guardian/family care advisor. Badge permanence. Front office training complete. Jonathan didn't fill the silence. He let her read. When she finished, she set the papers on the table but kept a hand on them like they might slide away. Is this optics? No, he said. You know the word, she said. Too well, he said. This is me putting in print what I've watched you do for 6 months. If I ever disappear into later thought again, the paper stays. Naomi tapped the clause about decision-making. This line, present in rooms where decisions are made, sounds good on paper. It's better with keys. Keys are in the drawer by the stove, he said. Alarm codes on the sheet Ms. Dwyer printed. If you don't have both by noon, yell. Yelling is your department, she said. He nodded at the benefits page. If the number's wrong, say so. If a policy is missing, say so. This isn't a favor. It's a correction. Naomi didn't smile. She didn't look offended. She looked like someone mapping a bridge in her head. Titles are easy. Power is hard. Power is you not waiting at the gate for someone to decide whether you look like a guardian, he said. Power is my signature on this and your name on his school file and us walking into rooms together because that's what his life looks like. Ethan peeked over the stack like a meerkat. Is she getting promoted? Naomi slid a hand over the papers so he wouldn't smudge them. I don't know yet. You should, he said, already back to red crayons. You already boss us. Jonathan bit back a grin. He's not wrong. Naomi ran a thumb along the edge of the contract as if checking for splinters. If I sign, I'm not a houseplant we water when company comes. You're not, he said. I'm not a shield you hold up when you want to look like a good father, she added. He took that like a clean hit. You're the person who kept my son a whole person while I figured out how to show up. That's not a prop. That's a job. If there's a moment when I start treating you like Pia, tear this up and tell me to get out of my own way. She looked at him for a long second. Okay, 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 I'll tear it up if you turn it into a costume, she said. And okay, I'll sign if you mean the parts about rooms and keys and choices. I mean them, he said. She slid the papers back into the envelope but didn't hand it away. I need a day. You have it, he said. Ethan set his crayon down again, slid a piece of paper across the table. New drawing, he announced. 3 stick figures. 1 tall. 1 medium, curly hair. 1 small between them. All 3 holding a string that tethered to a hawk. Underneath, in block letters that leaned too hard into the paper, my family. Naomi's fingers stopped rubbing the envelope. Jonathan's shoulders went a shade lower. Who is who? Jonathan asked because he wanted to hear it out loud. I'm the small one, Ethan said obviously. She's the medium one because she says she's medium. You're the tall one because you drink more coffee. Naomi made a sound that could have been a laugh if she hadn't been trying not to. Scientific. Ethan squinted at the hawk. Do hawks have leashes? Only if the person holding the string knows what they're doing, Naomi said. Do I? Ethan asked. You do, she said. He considered the page, then pressed it flat with both palms, leaving faint prints where the red crayon hadn't dried. Can we put it somewhere not the fridge? The fridge is for words like broccoli and Niagara. Your room, Jonathan said. Wall by the bookshelf. Ethan shrugged. Okay. He collected his crayons into the tin. Are you staying for lunch? Naomi looked at Jonathan. Jonathan looked back at her. Yes, she said. I'm staying. They made grilled cheese because grilled cheese is democracy. Naomi buttered. Jonathan flipped. Ethan announced when both sides were gold, not brown like a sad pancake. At the table, Ethan chewed and hummed and said nothing of consequence until he did. If she signs the job, he asked, not looking up, does she still read the dragon? Yes, Jonathan said. Do you still do the bridge? Ethan asked. Yes, Jonathan said. Ethan washed down a bite with milk. Then I vote yes. Naomi's mouth curved. Noted. After lunch, Ethan disappeared to mount the drawing. Naomi gathered the plates. Jonathan reached to take them. She let him. When he came back from the sink, she had the envelope in her hand again. You're sure about the title? She asked. Family Care Advisor and Education Liaison is long. I tried Person Who Saved Us, he said. Legal had notes. That got the laugh her earlier almost laugh had promised. It was quick and surprised and unguarded. She picked up a pen from the tin. Not ceremonial, not a flourish. The pen with bite marks. If I sign, it doesn't erase anything that came before, she said. It just gives what we're already doing a name. That's all a contract should do, he said. Catch up. She signed. The initials in the margin where the emergency clause lived. She slid the papers back and handed the envelope to him as if handing him a responsibility, not a gift. Thank you, he said, because there wasn't a bigger phrase that didn't sound like a billboard. Don't thank me, she said. Keep showing up. Ethan reappeared, hair at 5 angles, tape stuck to 2 fingers. It's up, he announced. Next to the shelf. Naomi crouched. Perfect spot. Ethan chewed his lip. If Aunt Lorraine comes back, can she see it? Yes, Jonathan said. She can see it. And if someone at school says, Maid Mom again, Ethan added, testing the words like a loose tooth, do we have to do the office part? We'll do the part where you use words first, Naomi said. Then we do the part where grown-ups fix it. Okay, he said. The words sounded like a stone landing in a place it was meant to be. He ran off again, because 8-year-olds are gravity in motion. The house settled behind him. The envelope lay on the table like a quiet line drawn in ink. Jonathan picked it up. I'll scan and send a copy to Hayden. And Ms. Abbott. Naomi nodded. Send one to Ms. Dwyer. She likes files that live in 3 places. Done, he said. She looked around the room. Not inspecting. Recognizing. It's less a museum, she said. It's a mess, he said. It's a home, she said. He didn't try to put a bow on it. He crossed to the doorway and paused where he had stood that morning, watching the space that was no longer pretending to be something else. Behind him, her badge lay on the counter next to the tin of crayons, both useful, both ordinary. "Tonight," he said, "you take the dragon?" "Always," she said. "I'll take the bridge," he said. "Don't look down," she replied. He nodded once and, for the second time that day, chose to be inside his own life. The paper in his hand wasn't a miracle. It was a map. The kind with a legend, a scale, a north arrow. The kind you use when you've decided where you're going and just need a way to keep from wandering back into your old, familiar lost. Monday came in clean and bright, the kind of morning that makes last week feel like a rumor. Ethan forgot his lunch. Naomi noticed 10 minutes after drop-off, held the tin box like a small emergency, grabbed the spare keys from the hook. At the Maple Glen gate, the same guard in the Navy windbreaker stepped out of the booth. He didn't squint. He didn't posture. "Morning, Miss Brooks," he said, voice ordinary. "Badge looks good." Naomi held it up. "Brooks, Naomi, Guardian." "Morning." He hit the button and the gate rolled back. "You're all set." "Thank you," she said and drove through. The thank you landed like it belonged. In the front office, the receptionist smiled without the tightness from before. "I'll run it to his room," she offered. "I can do it," Naomi said. "You can," the receptionist agreed, and slipped her a visitor sticker out of habit, then laughed at herself. "Right, Guardian. Force of habit. We're retraining the habits too." Naomi delivered the lunch, caught a glimpse of Ethan bent over a worksheet, tongue out in concentration. He looked up, saw her, gave the smallest salute, then returned to his pencil like a man on a mission. She left without knocking on the glass. Room to belong includes room not to linger. By noon, an email pinged both her phone and Jonathan's. Special board session, caregiver policy adoption, 5 p.m. Community comments welcome. The agenda. The draft. The language Naomi and Hayden had sharpened over coffee and 3 edits. Jonathan texted, "We go together." Naomi, "Facts first." Jonathan, then anger, if needed. The boardroom had too much carpet and not enough air. Framed photos of smiling children lined one wall. A table of bottled water lined the other. Principal Hayden sat near the superintendent with a binder open to tabbed pages. Mr. Larkin hovered with his legal pad. Parents clustered in chairs set for an audience. Jennifer from 2C lifted a hand when she saw Naomi and mouthed, "You've got this," like a secret handshake. Lorraine was there. She wore a dark sheath dress and a calm expression like a lacquered surface. She didn't look at Naomi. She looked at Jonathan the way people look at old photographs they aren't sure they should have kept. The board chair tapped a mic. "Order. Today's special session concerns formal adoption of our updated caregiver policy." He nodded to Hayden. Hayden stood. The policy was piloted last week. It clarifies recognition of guardians and authorized caregivers on campus, codifies front office and security procedures, and outlines responses to derogatory language aimed at caregivers. The goal is simple: children should see the adults who raise them treated with respect. A board member in a navy blazer raised a hand. "Before we adopt, I move to table until next quarter for additional community feedback." "Second," said Mrs. Winthrop from the back, "too fast." Jonathan was on his feet before the chair called for discussion. "Opposed," he said. He wasn't at a microphone. He didn't need one. "We don't table basic dignity for a quarter." The chair frowned. "Public comment will come after board discussion, Mr. Hale." "Then discuss in the open," Jonathan said. He sat, but the room had already edged toward his voice. Lorraine rose with perfect timing. "I'm a relative of a current student," she said, not naming herself for the record. "I don't oppose respect. I oppose confusion. This policy elevates employees to parent equivalence. It invites boundary problems. It opens the door to complications." Naomi stood. She didn't look at Lorraine. She looked at the board. "This policy doesn't elevate anyone," she said. "It names the people who already do the work. It prevents a child from watching the adult who picks him up be treated like a delivery." A board member cleared his throat. "And your role is?" "Family care advisor and education liaison," Naomi said. Guardian on school records. I show up. I sign routine forms after Mr. Hale is called. I attend meetings. I breathe with children until their shoulders come down. She let one beat pass. That's not a complication. That's care. Mrs. Winthrop lifted her chin. What about parental rights? Jonathan stood again, controlled. My rights are intact. I exercise them when I authorize the person who raises my son to be recognized when she walked through your doors. Lorraine's smile cooled. That assumes this arrangement is permanent. It assumes a boy doesn't pay for adult insecurity, Jonathan said. The board chair pointed to the sign-up sheet for comments. We have time for 2 more. Jennifer from 2C stepped up, a piece of paper shaking in her fingers that she didn't read from. My kid's dad left. My mom helps after school. Sometimes my neighbor does. They're not me. They're the reason my kid gets here with his shoes on. If the front office looks at them like they don't belong, my kid feels it. He asked me last week if grandma counts. This policy tells him she does. Silence, then a small buzz that sounded like thinking. The chair nodded. 1 more. Naomi didn't expect to see Ms. Patel stand, but she did. I teach 2nd grade, she said. Children watch. They watch how we treat the people who show up for them. When Ethan saw Ms. Brooks given a badge that said, Guardian, he relaxed in a way no sticker chart could manage. We teach by what we enforce. Please adopt the policy. We're already living it. The board chair glanced down the line. Motion to table withdrawn? The Navy Blazer member hesitated, then sighed. Withdrawn. Then on the policy itself, the chair said. All in favor? Hands went up. 1, 2, 3, 4. The chair counted, then looked at Mrs. Winthrop, who looked at Lorraine, who looked at the table like it had betrayed her. Opposed. 2 hands. Policy adopted. A sound moved through the room like a long-held breath leaving a chest. Hayden closed her binder. She didn't smile. She looked like someone who had carried a box down a hallway without dropping it. Lorraine gathered her bag. She moved to Jonathan with a face that said last chance. You will regret this when people start asking questions, she murmured. They can ask me, he said. They don't get to question him. Her eyes flicked toward Naomi, then away. This isn't over. It doesn't have to be a fight, he said, but he wasn't pleading. He was done pleading. It can be a choice. Mine was to put in writing what my life already is. Lorraine held his gaze a half-second longer, then left with her heels saying everything her mouth didn't. Naomi didn't exhale until the parking lot, under a sky that had traded its morning blue for a gentler evening. Jonathan leaned against the SUV. He didn't look triumphant. He looked settled. You okay? He asked. I'm tired, she said. But I'm good tired. Me too, he said. Ethan, she asked. Ms. Abbott texted, he said. He finished the bridge chapter. Saved the dragon for us. Naomi touched her badge with one finger, like blessing or habit. Let's go home. Home didn't need to be announced anymore. It felt like it when they walked in, shoes near the mat, a drawing on the fridge that had won the battle with broccoli, a note in Ethan's handwriting on the hall table, reading on the couch. Don't stop at the scary part. He had underlined don't twice. Ethan was under the throw blanket with the book open, only his eyes visible. Did you win? He asked without preamble. It wasn't a game, Naomi said. But did you win? He insisted. Yes, Jonathan said. We won a rule. Good, Ethan said. He sat up. Dragon voice. Naomi slid in and tapped the page. Dragon voice. Jonathan took the armchair, not because he had to, because he wanted the angle where he could see both their faces. Naomi read first, a steady thread. Jonathan picked up where she left off. He didn't overdo the beast this time. Ethan listened like listening counted. At the cliff of a paragraph, Naomi paused. Not quit, Ethan said. Pause, she corrected, smiling. Check in. Jonathan looked at his son. You good? Ethan nodded. I like rules that are about staying. Naomi set a finger on the word bridge. Us too. They finished the chapter. Naomi marked the page with a yellow sticky. Ethan pressed it flat, then yawned so wide it reset his whole face. He leaned toward Naomi, then toward Jonathan, and ended up in the space between them, shoulder to each. Question, he mumbled. Always, Naomi said. If he goes away again for work, Ethan said, eyes closing as he asked it, do you still stay? Naomi didn't look at Jonathan to answer. I stay, she said. And he's not going to disappear. He's going to say yes or no, not maybe. I'm not going to disappear, Jonathan said, out loud, the way promises should be said. If I have to go, you'll know when. And I'll come back when I said. Okay, Ethan whispered, and slid into sleep like a boat finding its slip. The room changed around his breathing. They sat there a minute, not moving him yet. The house hummed, the kind of quiet that doesn't leer, that belongs. Thank you, Jonathan said finally. For what? Naomi asked. For building the part of this I didn't know how to start, he said. We built it, she said. He held the hammer. Jonathan looked at the badge on her blazer and then at the yellow flag in the book. Paper and plastic. Symbols and the work under them. I meant what I said to her, he added. If it turns into optics, rip it up. I will, she said. They carried Ethan to bed, the practice duet now muscle memory. Duvet. Hawk drawing set where he could see it when he woke. Door left a finger's width, exactly. Back in the hall, Jonathan stopped by the closet. The morning map was still taped where it had always been. He didn't need to touch the gold star to know it would shine in the morning. At the top of the stairs, Naomi paused. Tomorrow, you take drop-off? Yes, he said. I'll do pick up, she said. We'll read after dinner. Bridge and Dragon, he said. One step, she said. Don't look down, he finished. They turned off lights without making a ceremony of it. Outside, the neighborhood had settled too. Inside, 3 rooms held 3 people and one story that kept going. They didn't fix a whole town. They didn't end a kind of whisper. They wrote a rule, enforced it with showing up, and gave a boy a map he could hold. A beginning is just an ending that finally chose a direction. They had chosen. And for once, it felt less like leaping and more like putting one foot on a wooden plank and knowing the other would have somewhere real to land.